Hey witches, welcome to Busy, Gritty, Inked and Witchy, a magical living podcast for the busy witch. I'm Morgan, eclectic witch of almost 25 years, Avalon priestess, and busy witch. Here we'll talk all things witchy, from current metaphysical happenings to my busy witch tips and tricks, and everything in the in-between. This podcast is my personal journey, filled with my knowledge, opinions, and unique way of looking at the world. Join me as I weave the magical and the mundane in every episode. Hey witches, welcome back to Busy, Gritty, Inked, and Witchy. I am Morgan, and today I am talking about what witchcraft is not. So this episode is inspired by current events, and when I start talking about it, you might be like, where is she going with this? I promise you, it will come full circle, okay? So the Olympics opening ceremony was last week. And I'm going to talk about the opening ceremony and the controversial opening ceremony, and I'm going to give you all my 2 cents. If you're tired of hearing about it, fast forward maybe a couple of minutes. But for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, we're going to dive in a very fun way. Okay, and I promise you, this will loop back around to what witchcraft is not. Okay. So the Olympics opening ceremony at one point had this table full of drag queens, and Dionysus, or Bacchus, but Dionysus is the Greek god of wine, Bacchus is the Roman equivalent, was in the middle of this table, and like they pulled this thing, this like covered, he was a covered dish, and I pulled this up and then he started singing. And so what it looked like and what happened were Christians everywhere immediately became offended because this scene, and as this scene panned out, there were drag queens along a large table that ended up becoming a runway, I believe. But everyone thought that it was a depiction of the Last Supper, the Da Vinci's painting. And it immediately caused an uproar in America, but across the world. Like there were world leaders coming forward saying this is offensive to Christianity, So organizers then came out a day or so later and said that the person who created that segment, the artist or the choreographer, but whoever had envisioned this segment, said that it was not a representation or a parody of the Last Supper. It was instead a representation of a pagan celebration painting. Now, this is where it gets a little weird. They didn't say which painting, so it started to be up for interpretation. And so what has come back is either it was inspired by Feast of the Gods by Italian artist Giovanni Bellini and Titian. Excuse me if I am pronouncing any of these wrong. I know when I get to the Dutch one in a second, I'm probably going to fuck it up really bad. Or it was based on Feast of the Gods by Dutch artist Jan van Bilgert. Excuse that. I don't know. Or there's a third interpretation out there when you dive into this. Feast of the Gods with the marriage of Bacchus and Ariadne. Again, excuse my pronunciation on that. By Hans Rottenhammer. So what they tried to say is this was not a depiction of the Last Supper. This was not a parody of the Last Supper. This was instead inspired by this painting of pagans celebrating under Dionysus and coming together from all walks of life and all of the Greek gods they're celebrating and everything. And I'm like, So I did a deep dive, you guys. I looked at all of these paintings. Okay. Here's my 2 cents. Okay. The depiction at the Olympics looked no more or no less like a Feast of the Gods than it did the Last Supper. And in fact, I can 100% see how many people thought it was a parody of the Last Supper. In fact, when I first heard about this story, I went, oh shit, that's a parody of the Last Supper. Some of the garments that the drag queens were even wearing matched the colors of the garments in the Last Supper. They did not match. In fact, no one's wearing clothes in the pagan ritual. Like, there's very few clothes in these Feast of God paintings, very few clothes. Or they're like hung off. And I know that, it's the Olympics and they can't have, nude people hanging out on NBC. But anyway, I will say that it looked no more or less like the Last Supper than it did the Feast of the Gods paintings. Any three of these, any one of these three. So I personally believe that the artist knew exactly what they were doing. The artist, choreographer, whoever put together this segment knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly the fallout of it, and they just didn't give a shit because it was art. It was art. It's subjective. You know what I mean? So anyway, maybe next time we choose a painting that doesn't look like a famous Christian painting, like a famous depiction of the Last Supper before Christ died. Like, maybe next time let's do that, one that the artistic interpretation cannot be misconstrued in any way, shape, or form, offending more than half the world. Okay, maybe next time let's do that, right? All right, so how does this tie into what witchcraft is not? I'm going to swing it around, I promise, all right? So this whole scenario got me thinking that Christians everywhere got extremely pissed off, and immediately offended, and supposedly the inspiration for this piece was pagan affiliated. Okay, it was pagan adjacent. It was supposedly this beautiful painting of pagans celebrating and feasting around Dionysus, okay, the Greek god of wine and pleasure, okay, and we pagans love pleasure, okay. That is something that I think a lot of Christians are very jealous of, is that we own our pleasure, we own our power, we indulge, okay. So I started this my brain kept going, and I wondered, shit, is this somehow going to swing around to us pagans being the root of all evil again? Like, somehow, is this going to swing around? Because this is a painting that absolutely gorgeous, but depicted a pagan celebration. Is this somehow going to bite us in the ass as pagans? So that's how this idea for this podcast episode was born, because I'm gonna go into the first one, but what I have for you all today is 5 things for me that witchcraft is not, okay? And the first one ties directly into it. Witchcraft is not the black sheep or the scapegoat of the religions anymore. I don't believe it is, okay? I understand that depending on where you are in the world, yes, witches are still not looked on in a favorable light. I'm from Virginia. I lived in North Carolina. I lived in South Carolina. I had a pagan store in the Bible Belt. I 100% know how difficult it is to practice religion openly and with freedom, especially in extremely conservative areas. I do. So I'm not discounting that in any way, shape, or form, okay? But at one point, witches and paganism, we were it. We were the black sheep of the whole religious everything. We were the scapegoats. If anybody needed to blame anything, you blamed it on a witch. You blamed it on a pagan, I don't think that's the case anymore. I think that, at least I think that there's a global wakening up, and we realize that global wars are not, nor have ever been fought between differing pagan groups. I mean, based on religious beliefs. Let me take it one far, because I'm sure you go far back enough. The Vikings were taking over the world, but it didn't have anything to do with their religion as to why they were taking over the world. They just wanted to take over the world. They wanted to, pillage and have just domination over the world. And Romans the same way. It wasn't a religious thing for Romans. They happen to be polytheistic, but they just wanted world domination. It didn't have anything to do with their religion, okay? So I think the more that we open our eyes up to that as a society and as a world, like, hey, this war over here is not being fought between two pagan groups, or it's not being fought in the name of paganism or the name of witchcraft. I think that we're starting to understand that witchcraft is not the black sheep or the scapegoat of the religions anymore. I fully believe that the stigma of being called a witch reduces by the day overall for a lot of people. I understand that even there's some third world countries where you could still be burned at the stake. But I think overall, for the world, I think we're starting to understand that it's not a witch's fault. It's not the witch's fault anymore. It's not the witch's fault. So that was the first one. Number 2 is witchcraft is not anti-Christian. Now, if you've been following me for a while, I poke fun at Christians a lot. I do. I will be the first to admit it. Does this mean I'm anti-Christian? It does not, okay? And I think what happens is a lot of us come from Christian homes, or we grew up in Christianity, and somewhere along the line we began to question, or Christianity did something, or the ideals of Christianity fucked with us and somehow, and we started to wake up and be like, okay, wait a minute, maybe this isn't the only way to go. Maybe I can do something else, okay? So then we start to make the transition over to witchcraft. And I think for a lot of us, what happens is we find witchcraft, we find paganism. We're so at home that we're like, oh my God, witchcraft or Christianity was evil. Like that shit was horrible. Let me make sure that nothing I'm doing can be confused with Christianity. And so we kind of swing this pendulum over into the other realm, the exact opposite of Christianity. And for a lot of us, like we stay there. But then I think the more that you understand religion as a whole and the beliefs behind many different religions, behind many different spiritual paths, that pendulum kind of comes out of the big one. Like it comes out of that extreme and kind of comes back to the middle, And so that's where we realize that no fanatics, no extremes. There's going to be extremes and fanatics in every single religion. Okay, so I'm not talking about them. What I'm talking about is, generally speaking, for most religions, the core values are the same. The core stories are the same. The core principles are the same. So it doesn't matter which religion you came from or which religion you are. When it boils down to the core values, a lot of them are overlap. There's so much overlap. There's so much similarity. Okay, so that's when I think the further that you go on your witchcraft path, you realize that there's a lot of overlap with Christianity, and that Christianity is not evil. Just as they like to peg us as evil, a lot of times those are the closed-minded Christians, So as much as they want to peg us as evil, pegging them as evil is just as closed-minded. Yeah. So I think that when you swing over to this anti-Christian pendulum side, you also end up denying yourself what could be some amazing experiences. And I will share a little story with you all. I had for a very long time another energy about me that I could feel, another deity, and I kind of reached out and was like, hey, I don't know who you are. Can I have some more information? I'll look for synchronicities. And Mary Magdalene started popping up so much for me. And I was like, there's no way, she's Christian. I'm not going to do this. Like, I'm not going to go down this path. She's technically a Christian deity. And so I denied so much because I was so much in that realm of no Christianity bad that I was like, there's no way, And so finally, once I really started to dive down into religions, it happened a lot when I got my degree as my bachelor's degree in metaphysical sciences. I really started to understand the overlap between all the different religions and how their core beliefs are the same. And so that's when I truly opened myself up and I swung my pendulum back into the middle and I said, okay, Mary Magdalene, let me research her. And to this day, she has become, one of my patron deities. So I think if you're still way over in that realm of Christianity is evil, it's the same, like as when they say witchcraft is evil, So witchcraft is not anti-Christian, okay, like at its core. The third one is witchcraft is not a trend or accessory you can wear. I do think there is this resurgence of witchcraft, or this surgence, even if it's not a resurgence. But I think a lot of people are really starting to understand witchcraft is not evil, which is another one. It's not officially a part of this podcast, but a lot of people are understanding what witchcraft is and what your spiritual path is when it comes to witchcraft, and having not so many rules and regulations as in Christianity or some of the other mainstream religions. So as knowledge becomes available and a lot of people start to make this transition over to this path, there are quite a few, and it tends to happen with the younger generation, like, oh, I'm a witch. Like, okay, well, what does that mean to you? I'm a witch. Like, oh, okay, but what does that mean to you? Like, I'm a witch. Like, I'm not a Christian anymore. I'm a witch. And it's like, that is a pet peeve of mine, because witchcraft is a lifestyle. Witchcraft is a devotion. It is a state of being. It is not a cool party trick that you can pull out to impress your friends. Like, oh, no, never mind, I'm a witch. Oh, that doesn't apply to me, I'm a witch. So in order to get into this, you have to understand that this is a lifestyle, that this is a way of life. This is not something cool to call yourself and then not follow through with the practice of being a witch. It's, being a witch and being a rebel are not the same thing. They can be, but if you are just wanting to rebel from societal norms, calling yourself a witch is not the way to do it, unless you are planning on making a change in your life to become a witch. And I have said it in the past on podcast episodes, and, like, if you feel like you're a witch, and then you call yourself a witch. But if you're doing it from a place of, oh, I'm a rebel, or, oh, witches are trendy right now, so let me go ahead and call myself a witch, but you have zero intention on even practicing witchcraft or gaining the knowledge or becoming a practicing witch, then maybe witchcraft isn't for you. Because witchcraft is not a trend or an accessory that you can just wear whenever you want to. Okay? And is this the last one? That was number 4, right? Yeah. Cool. All right. The last one, witchcraft is not a fix-all for your life, especially if you don't want to do the work. I had to add that little part here because witchcraft can be very empowering. That is why a lot of us got into it. A lot of us came from Christian households, and we spent our time praying to God to do this for me. God, help me with this. God, do this for me. Jesus, come over here and heal me. Jesus, do this. And with witchcraft, you are almost in a way invoking deities, but you are invoking energies around you, whether they are symbolic from deities or whether they're elemental energies or whatever, but you are drawing them into you so that you can make the change. You can have the power in your life. You're not giving your power up to a higher being and saying, hey, I give my power over to you, now give me things. You are taking that power and creating the change yourself, okay? So if you are willing to do the work, then yes, witchcraft can be a fix-all for your life. I fully believe that. If you can integrate your mind, your body, your soul into one, get everything on one page, then you can manifest your desires. You can have whatever you want, but you've got to put in the work. You cannot just snap your fingers and be like, I'm a witch now, my life is complete. It's fixed. Everything is peachy keen and perfect. That is not how witchcraft works. Now, if you want to put in the work and you want to put in the time and the devotion to not only understand yourself, but understand witchcraft, understand energy, understand magic, learn how it works for you, learn what doesn't work for you, then not only does magic and witchcraft become easier as you go on, but then you can apply it to every aspect of your life. Got a shitty job, want a new one? There's a spell for that. Are you sick and you really want to heal a little bit quicker? There's a spell for that. There's magic for that. Do you want to find the love of your life and live happily ever after in the romance that's just made perfect for you? There's a spell for that. There's energy work for that. Okay. So this is why I say witchcraft is not a fix-all for your life if you are not willing to do the work. Okay. Now, shadow working is a huge part of that because your shadows can manifest for you. Your shadows can manifest they can manifest things in your life to keep you quote unquote safe. And if you start to grow and you start to step outside of your comfort zone in a great way, your shadows, if they are undealt with, if you have not dealt with them, if you have not looked them in the face and taken away their power, they will grow and they will sabotage shit in your life to keep you safe. They think that they're doing you a favor. They're like, okay, you said you wanted a new job. You said that, okay? But like moving to like a new office is super scary. So we're just going to go ahead and energetically sabotage that from you because really, honestly, we're here to protect you and keep you safe. And that is staying in your shitty job right now because the devil you know is way better than the devil you don't know. So we're just going to go ahead and sabotage that spell just a little. And then you can stay in your job and you're welcome. That is actually what shadows do. So if you don't do the shadow working to bring them to light, to pull out the things inside of you that could be that self-sabotaging aspect or that could be working against you, then you're really not able to manifest to the point that you would like to, or you're not able to create the life of your dreams, or you're not able to move forward the way that you want to. But if you are doing the shadow working and you're gaining the knowledge on how energy works, you're gaining the knowledge on what works for you in a spell or a ritual, what doesn't, and you have a realistic expectation of how energy works, how magic works, and what you can do to change things in a way that benefit you and make your dreams and desires come true, then magic and witchcraft will benefit you and can be applied to any section of your life. Let's put it that way. So yeah, I think I covered that. I think I got all of that because I have notes, but sometimes I just go off. Yeah, no, we've got it. Powerful magic takes shadow working to truly be successful. Here's the last little part of that. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4. You guys, I had another one. I lost count somewhere along the way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, because I got one more. And that is witchcraft is not one size fits all. That's my fifth and final one. Witchcraft is not one size fits all. What works for you may not work for me. What works for me may not work for you. A daily devotion in my world looks different than a daily devotion in your world. Let me see, Lammas is coming up, or Lunasa. A ritual for that may look completely different for you than it will for me. I may skip it. Maybe I don't do the wheel of the year. Maybe I don't do moon phases. Maybe you love doing moon phases. Maybe you're an astrology witch and you really get into planetary alignments and their energy and what house they are in your chart and how that affects you. That's where astrology loses me. But like if that's your jam and that works for you, that is amazing. So there's nothing in witchcraft that's one size fits all. Absolutely not. And the only way to figure out what works for you is to experiment and have fun and explore and gain knowledge and have fun. Did I already say that? Because that's the biggest thing. I think we all got into witchcraft because it looked cool or seemed cool somewhere, whether it was in a TV show, a movie, or a book. But once you get into it, it really is fucking cool. It really, So the only way that you're going to figure out what works for you is to experiment and to have fun and to practice and to learn about all different kinds of things. So that is what I have for you all today. And that is also the perfect segue into August in the Ink Spirit Coven. We are doing Untamed Witchcraft. I know I did a whole entire podcast episode on this, but this is where that experimentation, that fun comes into play that I was just talking about. Untamed Witchcraft to me are all of the witchcraft practices that have a little bit of taboo. They're a little taboo. They're not really talked about. They're, by some people, frowned upon. So the only way that you know whether or not they're going to work for you, and for example, we're going to be talking about blood magic. We're going to be talking about sex magic. We're going to be talking about chaos magic. And the only way for you to know if these things work for you is, number one, you have to gain the knowledge. And that's what I'm going to be doing in August in the Ink Spirit Coven. We're going to have an entire class on this. I'm going to do all the research for you. I'm going to give you my opinion as well in the live class. And then for the second half of the month, we're going to have a fire releasing ritual online. All of this is on Zoom. And we're going to be finishing up our journey with the element of fire that we've been doing for the summer. So we're going to have a fire releasing ritual. That would be the time, once you learn about some of these things, maybe you want to explore some of them and you're like, but I'm kind of scared. Release that fear. That's what you can do during the fire releasing ritual. So everything is held on Zoom. We come together. It's an amazing group of witches, eclectic witches. And I do teach the class, and I will be facilitating the ritual as well. So if this sounds amazing to you and you want to join the Ink Spirit Coven, online coven, then head to inkedspirit.com. And if you use the coupon code podcast5, all one word, and then the number 5, then that will give you $5 off your first month. So you can join us, and I think you're going to love it. I really do, because it's where I hang out. It's where I teach. It's where I'm myself. And I absolutely love the supportive community that we have within that group. So I would love to have you join. But that is what I have for you all today. I want to thank you for giving me a platform to share my knowledge, my opinions about the opening ceremony from the Olympics, because that was fun, and to just be myself. So thank you for listening, and I will see you all again soon. Bye.